Hello everyone, Shinto Bean here with some more Warhammer Combat Cards PvP mode. In this video I will be covering 3 matches I played against MadEmp. Now this is not part of any tournament. I just reached out to MadEmp and he was kind enough to play a couple games with me. This is taking place in his arena, and this time we actually talked beforehand and decided which warlords to play as. So there's no luck involved in terms of the matchups. We both know which warlords we're playing against going into the games. MadEmp's cards are at a much higher level than mine, so there's no question as to which player is the stronger one. This is just for entertainment purposes and for science to see how these warlords match up against each other. So for the first match, I chose everyone's favorite warlord, Captain Badruck, and MadEmp is using Eldrad. Now I'm running a pretty standard Badruck deck. I've got the Squig Buggy, I've got the little mini tanks with Taunt, I've got the Daka Jet, and I actually kind of messed up. I was intending to put in the Snazwagon, that's the buggy with all the shields, but instead I put the Boosta Blasta with the precision shot in there. The Snazwagon I think is a lot better. My personal copy has 3 shields, but it's kind of funny how it worked out because with the deck that MadEmp chose, he included 2 units with Psionic Blast, and Psionic Blast is the best trait, I think, for getting rid of shields, so I don't think it would have really made much of a difference if I had used the Snazwagon instead of the Boosta Blasta. So here he has deployed a very high-level Spirit Seer to the field, along with a Wraith Fighter, 2 cards that have a powerful ranged attack in addition to their psychic attack. The Spirit Seer is more of a newer card, so a lot of players will not have it at a very high level, but in this case it is quite strong. Now I kind of messed up there in the deployment because the mini tanks were the ones that got the extra attack after destroying the little birds. That is not what you want happening with Badruck. You want your strongest ranged units getting those extra attacks in. Now he's deploying his next unit, which is able to debuff the ranged attack. So this is turning into a pretty strong anti-ranged deck. The Psionic Blast destroyed the mini-tanks, allowing the Wraith Fighter to fire upon the Squig Buggy with its psychic attack. At this level, the Wraith Fighter has a very strong psychic attack, as you can see. So now I'm deploying the Boosta Blasta, and it fires off its precision shot there, but I am unable to actually destroy anything because of that ranged debuff, which is pretty huge here. Really needed that Daka Jet to get the extra attack in, but that was just not happening. And, you know, going with any other attack type would not have really worked out in this scenario. So I just went with the ranged. That's the most damage I could deal. And they were able to counterattack with a pretty strong attack there. Now they're going once again with the psychic attack, destroying the Squig Buggy, once again debuffing my ranged. And now Badruck himself has to deploy to the field. He's the last card in there. And once again, I have a very weak attack. So Badruck is the one who's going to be getting the extra attack. He can't really do all that much damage. But that is the only choice we have. So we weren't even able to get through all the bodyguards. Unable to destroy either of the 2 big units there. And now Badruck is all alone on the field. And, you know, Eldrad is one of the strongest psychers in the game, so he would have been able to easily roast Badruck in a single shot, but he does not even need to deploy in this case. And MadEmp chooses ranged to finish off Badruck. So Eldrad did not even have to activate his special rule a single time that match, and the composition was just really good against Badruck. I think neither of us actually realized how good it was going to be. So this was a very quick match, but one example of how to beat down Badruck. Moving on to match number 2, this time I chose one of my stronger decks, the good old Deathblow Avatar build, and MadEmp chose Skulltaker, who's a very fun warlord to play as, but arguably one of the weaker ones overall. So to start off, I deployed some of my ranged units. These are the ones with no melee attack, so you can better funnel the bonuses from the avatar into one of the melee units. I wanted to get the Wraith Lord on the field. It wasn't showing up there at the beginning. And MadEmp is deploying some of his weaker units. Got the Bloodletter on the field, followed by Karn the Betrayer. Now that is a max level Karn. I did get the Wraith Lord on the field. I put it in the center lane. There you can see level 10, over 100 damage to start off with. It is one scary berserker. He's got Obsidious Malix deploying to the field with a big Furious Charge, which actually activated the Locus of Decapitation, immediately killing the Dark Reaper in the left lane. That Obsidious guy got a slight buff as well in this season. So I started off with a ranged attack, dealing some damage, and I put down the Howling Banshee next, which I just added to this deck. I didn't have it in there before, but I had a few extra points because the cost of the Wraith Lord was actually reduced by several points. It was actually a mistake to deploy the Howling Banshee there because it ended up getting the bonus here immediately before dying, so that was kind of a waste of the Avatar's special rule, but it did die the turn it was played. And next I decided to deploy the birds with Taunt. Now because these guys are taunting, they are guaranteed to be the first ones to die, so they will not be getting any of the bonuses. So I put down the ranged unit on the right. It is activating Karn's Berserker Rage with the ranged attacks, but I'm hoping that I can just hold Karn at bay until I can move over one of my stronger melee units to finish him off in one turn. The Wraith Lord currently has 91 melee attack. And then I put down the Howling Banshee Exarch over in the left lane. It was kind of a risky move there, because they do have a lot of damage. And he went for the melee attack, coming very close to killing the Exarch, but fortunately it survived. It did get a slight bonus there, but then the death blow from the Bloodletter actually killed the Exarch. You can see that the death blow actually counts as a melee attack, so it was able to activate Skulltaker's Locus of Decapitation. You don't see that happen too often, but the good old Wraith Lord got all of the bonuses there, so it's got a huge amount of melee attack right now. And I'm down to my last card, so I had to deploy the Avatar, but then I've got the Solitaire, so I've got some really strong cards on the field. I was feeling pretty confident at this point. Even though he still had a lot of cards left, it is my turn, and I have a big melee attack charged up. He put down the Raptor with Fear. It's greatly reducing the damage on the Solitaire, but thanks to the buffed melee attack, I'm able to destroy that taunt unit in one hit and take down Karn in one hit with the Avatar, and then the Wraith Lord able to destroy the Raptor, immediately clearing the board, giving my units even more buffs. And now it is his turn. He has to deploy his last 3 cards. There is a max level Celeste. Now that is a true monster. It has all 3 attack types, able to deal so much damage, and Skulltaker actually is one of the weaker warlords, I think, in terms of health. So I thought that I could deal with him, but you can see right here, he has like over 200 health at this level, and then the healing from that last bodyguard brought him to close to 300 health. So that is more health than my Avatar at the moment. And at this point, I was like, well, this is not looking so good. My Wraith Lord only has 53 health, and look at that, Celeste is able... Celeste just has enough range damage to destroy the Wraith Lord, so no matter what I do, that Wraith Lord is going to die. And there's really no point in going ranged or psychic, so I just went with the melee attack, trying to deal as much damage as possible. Really big death blow right there, but that just leaves the Avatar wide open for a massive counterattack, and MadEmp decides to go with the melee attack, and Skulltaker able to destroy the Avatar with its attack, not even needing to activate his special rule. So that's a very strong Skulltaker right there. I can only wish that I had my Skulltaker at that level. It would be quite a bit of fun to play. But that was an entertaining match. Even though I lost, it was actually decently close. The Avatar performed very well, especially that Wraith Lord, which got so many of the melee buffs. It was able to deal a ton of damage, and considering the levels of the cards, I think I did pretty well in that game. Moving on to the final match, this was the longest one by far because I chose Rakarth, who slowly increases the health of all of his units over time, leading to much longer games. MadEmp decided to use Ulthakar, who actually struggles quite a bit against Rakarth because it's harder for him to get the units down below 75% health to activate the special rule. He is a very high level warlord, as you can see right there, and a max level overlord deploying on the first turn. Now I'm running a hybrid Psyker melee composition with Rakarth, and I struggle with wondering which cards to deploy at the beginning, because I can put down my Psykers, they deal a lot of damage. The problem is a lot of these Eldari Psykers are kind of squishy. The Farseer is able to deal tremendous damage, but it doesn't have a whole lot of health. So you could benefit from deploying them later on in the game after they've gained some health from Rakarth's special rule. But deploying the melee units at the beginning is also kind of problematic because the ones I have in this deck also benefit a lot from the extra health. So I went with the Psykers on the field. Of course, using Psykers against Necrons is pretty effective because they do not have any Psykers of their own. So here I'm just able to deal a lot of free damage on the first turn. And they do have quite a bit of health. And they are going for the melee attack, working down the shields on my Shadow Seer. And on the first turn, able to destroy that poor little Warlock in one hit. And so here I deploy the Farseer. This is the strongest unit in this deck in terms of damage output, as long as you have other cards on the field. Because of that Psychic Link, it's able to deal 144 damage, and of course every time I destroy an enemy, or any card dies, for that matter, all of my units gain plus 7 health, as you're seeing right now. So I really want that Farseer to survive as long as possible. It's also getting his damage buffed by Yvraine in the center, with that Inspiring Presence, but again, this is PvP. Both players are able to shift their units over. It's a lot more dynamic than playing against the AI, so here you can see he moved his strong Overlord over to the center lane to try to take out Yvraine, and she's down to a very low amount of health. Got the Locust Heavy Destroyer in the right lane, and that thing is already very strong, but it's able to gain a lot more damage every time it takes damage from any source. Okay, and the Overlord is getting the buff from Ulthakar now that Yvraine is below 75% health. Got another healer deploying to the field, giving his units quite a bit of health. That is very effective, especially on the Locust Heavy Destroyer. More health that has, the more damage it can gain through its Berserk Rage. And down goes Yvraine. The Farseer is still looking pretty good, though. But the thing is, I've kind of run out of Psykers to deploy, so now the Farseer is not going to be able to deal as much damage from its attack. It's lost one of the Psychic Links, so it's only dealing 94 damage now. I do have a ranged debuff from the birds, which is helpful. And you can see they have 77 health. That's a lot more than they normally have, thanks to Rakarth's special rule. Now switching to the melee attack, the Overlord is dealing a ton of damage, taking down the birds with Taunt, and the Heavy Destroyer also able to destroy a unit there with its melee attack, which is normally pretty weak, but you can see how powerful it has become. And yeah, no more Psykers in my reserve, so I have to start putting down the melee units, which is not ideal. The Farseer is not able to deal very much melee damage. Now, I do have a decent melee attack charged up, so I put down the Grotesque and the Succubus, and decide to switch over to the melee attack for this turn. only 73 damage from the psychic attack as an option. So with the melee attack, I'm able to take down the Overlord and the Heavy Destroyer. There are only 2 bodyguards left, so I seem to be doing in pretty good shape. The Grotesque has Berserk, so it can gain damage buffs, and it has a whole lot of health right here, 235 health. And there is a max level Plasmancer. That thing deals a ton of damage. And then we've got Illuminor Xeris in the center lane. I also like using him with Ulthakar. He works pretty well, and he has a ton of health. So MadEmp is unable to destroy any of my units this turn, but his units have a whole lot of health thanks to all of that healing from the repeated Medicae trait. And unfortunately, my damage output is greatly reduced here. I'm going with a psychic attack and debuffing their melee by a bit, but that is one of the problems with Rakarth. He's able to heal his units and give them a whole lot of health, but in terms of damage, you just have to rely on the bodyguard's inherent damage output. And at this point, they're not dealing a whole lot of damage. Now this is where the Grotesque, deploying Berserkers earlier on can be good, because they can then gain more of those bonuses when being damaged by weaker enemies. But now I am forced to deploy my final units. We've got James Czar on the right with Fear, and then Rakarth himself deploying to the field as well. Now this is actually a pretty strong ranged melee attack. 111 damage from James Czar. Now that was in part because I was able to ready a little bit last turn when I went for the psychic attack. And so 2 of their bodyguards are very low, and now the only thing that MadEmp has after this is the warlord himself, Ulthakar. So he is actually going psychic here. He is debuffing both my ranged and melee. And that, I think, was a smart choice. I'm not a huge fan of readying. I don't really have the patience for it, so I tend to just go all in with the attacks. But readying can actually save you in some situations, and I think that was the right move for him to go here. He could have gone ranged, but the ready allowed him to charge up a little attack there. And it looks like I am in the lead at this point, because I am outnumbering him. I have a Grotesque able to attack the warlord directly. Rakarth still has 200 health. Now their warlord has 292 health. That's a whole lot of health on that destroyer lord. It's a little bit too much for me to get through. So I do have a big ranged attack charged up, and I was just looking at my options, seeing what I should go for. I decided to go with the ranged attack. A lot of damage from the Grotesque there, and Rakarth readying for a slightly stronger melee attack next turn, but at this point they are able to deal a lot more damage with their charged up attacks. So surprisingly, they do decide to go for the ranged attack, but that does activate Ulthakar's special rule, increasing his damage for the next turn. And it was looking really good for me, but at this point I just don't have enough damage to get through all the health on that warlord. I was debating whether to ready or just to go for the melee attack, and I just decided to go with the melee, which results in Rakarth's destruction. Able to deal a lot of damage, almost enough to take down that bodyguard, but just not quite enough. So it was a decently close match, again, considering the disparity of the levels, but yeah, I mean, Rakarth is kind of hit or miss for me, which is why I haven't been using him as much lately, but he seems to still be a pretty solid choice for Warlord. So, unsurprisingly, I lost all 3 matches, but I still had a good time. A big thank you to MadEmp for taking time out of your schedule to play these matches, and thank you all for watching. Let me know if you have any comments about PvP mode or any of these matches, and I will see you next time.